Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open our emotion to take us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tira Wages, and I am here with clinical sexologist, marriage and family therapist, Dr. Glenn Hill, as well as his incredible wife, Phyllis Hill. And they are the founders and creators of the Connection Codes, which helps couples conquer conflict and live in connection. Thank y'all for joining us today, and we are excited to dive in.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends.
Hi.
So, what a fun topic that we are jumping into today. I love it. Tira, why don't you kind of start with how just the verbiage of it? Because I think that is so gripping for our audience because, man, we can relate to this.
100%. We recently had our intensive, and I think through our intensive weekend, I just really gained so much knowledge of what couples are experiencing. And a lot of what we're experiencing, all of us experience in our home, but at different levels, and they present themselves differently. And so we had one of our attendees ask, so does this help us stop wanting to change our partner? When do we stop wanting to change them? Because really we brought each other here thinking the other one will change. And that just really hit me that oftentimes, even if it's subconsciously, there are things about each other that we desire to be different. So we do these small things to try to change each other. And so what does that look like now with the Connection Codes lens? And how do we process through that? And what are some examples of what that actually looks like?
Wow. Yeah. And when we were talking about this earlier, I thought, okay, in our early years of marriage, very much there was that idea of there's a right way to do this.
Right.
There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And of course, I married a brilliant man. And so he had all the right ways of doing everything. And it was a matter of, whatever it was, it's like, this is the best way to do this. So of course I should have been doing that as well. And, it caused a lot of, maybe not right at first, a lot of pain because I really believed him. I was like, oh, okay, wow, I have missed that. So of course we should iron our money. I mean, that is the best way to keep your money crisp and good, and it's better. It'll multiply or something. I don't know. We never got to the bottom of that. But for Glenn, it was like, well, this is just the right way to handle money,
Right.
cash. And so it was like, oh, okay, well then we iron our money. And then, another one for Glenn was to put your money in serial order. There's serial numbers on there, which I had never noticed before. And so he taught me, this is how you do your money. You iron it and then you put it in serial number order. And
Which is why they put the numbers on there.
right,
Obviously.
right. Obviously, we
purpose.
all know that now, of course.
Exactly.
But I had not ever heard that. And, it was many things, from the best way to fold a towel, the best way to put away the dishes, the best way to wash dishes. And I, kind of just thought, oh, okay, there's obviously a right way and a best way, and his way was that. But in time, especially as the children, came along, my brain never looked at things like that. Like, my brain never functioned in a way that said, this is vital and this makes sense.
Right.
Well, and as the list got longer and longer for you.
Yeah, the list got longer. And I think adding babies, it was like, oh, shoot, I am just glad to get laundry done. But folding them the right way, I'm just glad to get them folded and put in the closet versus there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. And so in time, it became very painful for me to realize my brain doesn't even notice, doesn't even tune in, doesn't even see it this way. And for our listeners that have heard, more of our story, that Glenn deals with, obsessive compulsive disorder, and early in our life, his numbers were pretty high as far as, now he's very, very functional. And he's also realized that it is just the way his brain sees things. It's the way his brain categorizes things. But it kind of led us down a road of very much there is a right way, there's a wrong way, there's the best way. And it brought a lot of tension over the years. And, there were certain things that I just didn't even touch. Like, Glenn is a spreadsheet kind of guy. Everything is on a spreadsheet for him. A lot of things, not so much anymore. But, and so I just was like, okay, well, my brain can't even catch up to how your brain is working. So I'm not even going to attempt to learn how to figure that one out. And so I backed way off, which is interesting because now at my age, I feel actually a lot of shame that I don't know how to do certain things. And it's interesting, and especially for our listeners that are a little bit older, they may appreciate this very much. But I don't know if in your glove box in your car, you still have that notebook where you write down every time you get gas and your mileage, and then you do the math and you figure out how many miles per gallon you're getting. Well, we definitely, when we started our life together in the 80s, of course, we had that notebook. And I would, if I was on my own and I got gas, I would definitely follow that. I would put it in there. But it's like there was a point in all of it that I thought, what is the point of this?
Right.
Like, what does it matter? And I would even question Glenn, like, what does it matter? Well, if our gas, mileage is going way down, there's something wrong with the car. It's an indicator of the car. There's something wrong with the car. Or whatever. And I just was like, oh, okay, well then let's just keep doing it. And it's interesting to even Glenn's mom, before she got a Tesla, she did that. And it was like, there was just some incredible value for her in that. And, we let go of it decades before she ever did. And it was just that she felt so strong. And if you ever borrowed her car and you didn't do it, it was like, it was such a big, like we had ruined her car because we didn't write down that we got gas, like really big deal. And so I think for a lot of us, we have ways that we believe this is the best way and our partner should be doing it the best way.
100%.
And so there's this desire of, I need you to change on this one. And it can bring a lot of pain. It can bring a lot of disconnection. And it goes back to the Connection Code tools of being able to just share on a transparent, raw level of just what's happening for me in that and what is happening for you in that. And to realize we are very different creatures and to make space for that and to allow that to be different. And it trickles down. Like if you have children, your children are going to be very different than you. And to make space for that, to really allow for the different brains that are functioning in this one house.
100%. And I'm glad that you brought those things up specifically about y'all's early days in relationship, because we have an entire episode dedicated to disorders of the psyche. And that's episode 15. And you may be thinking, oh, wow, myself or my partner may be experiencing disorders of the psyche on a different level. Glenn has actually helped me discover all of my disorders, maybe not all, because I'm sure there are some hidden, but he reminds me everyone experiences different disorders of the psyche. And so they're starting to reveal themselves to me of what I do differently. But we have a whole episode specifically about that. So through that, we may all be experiencing things that we don't realize our partner is, and it may be a disorder. And some of those things, though, may also just be how we nitpick certain things, how the bed is made, how the towels are folded, how we present ourselves to the world and our dress codes. And even my daughter is trying to tell me how to dress. I'm 36. She did not like the shirt that I wore yesterday, and she was repeatedly, more than once, letting me know how I needed to change what I was wearing. And so we're constantly trying to, and from a good heart, better, we would say, our partner or make them do things the way we want them to.
Yeah, well, I do want to say that because I can remember when we were first married, there were so many things, and even psychological disorders set aside, that I just didn't understand how you didn't already know this. Like, this is the best. And again, I was ridiculous and way off the charts. But I thought, well, this is obviously the correct thing. We had Pfaltzgraft dishware that have a pattern on them. And I'm thinking, why would you not stack them up with the patterns all turned the same way? It just doesn't make any sense. And again, that was an obsessive thing for me. But there are a lot of things like that if you want to make up the bed, you want to make it up the perfect way. You want everything symmetrical. And it just had zero value to you. You liked having the bed made, but it didn't matter to you if it was perfectly lined up exactly evenly. And I just couldn't grasp that. And so it was a pain point for me, and it was a pain point for you that I made such a big deal out of it.
I love that you're bringing up just having the bed made, because as for you, that there wasn't value in it. Like you're like, we're just going to get right back in it tonight. For me, it affected how I felt about the whole room. And to this day, you make the bed every day. I don't. And it's such a joy point for me. And you know it is a joy point for me. And I've expressed it as, oh, babe, it just so much joy floods over me when you make the bed. And so he makes it every single day.
And I experience joy in doing it because I know that it brings joy to you.
Yeah. And every once in a while we'll do it together. That's rare. But it's hilarious to me because he really is like a perfectionist.
Right.
He's like, babe, it's not lined up just right. And I'm thinking, I don't even see that.
Right.
Like I think I almost make it worse when I try to help him make the bed, because I'm just like, I mean, our bed is not complicated to make. You like pull up the quilt and you put the pretty pillows on it. But he's like,
I can do it in 43 seconds.
right. And when I do it with him, I think it takes 2 minutes because I mess up. Like he'll go, oh, babe, the pillow, the tag is supposed to be in the bottom left-hand corner. And I'm
Thank
like,
you. I'm glad you remembered that.
I'm like, I didn't even see the tag.
Right.
So then I'm looking for the tag. Like, I'm like, oh my word, I got to find the tag. And we're just so different in that. But for me, it is a joy point, and I've learned to express that joy point. And it's not a conflict of how we value whether to make the bed. There's not an argument of how stupid it is to make a bed that you're about to get back into that night kind of thing.
Right.
Where many years ago, it would have been an argument of let's prove the value or the waste of time versus it's just a joy point for me. I love, we have a beautiful bedroom, a really big bedroom that has a living room inside the bedroom and a nook as well that has my desk in it and a little reading area. Like, I just love our bedroom.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want it clean all the time. And a made bed is part of that,
Right.
for me.
Yeah, and I'm just so amazed the difference, because all of those things are just there's emotion underneath it. So for me, not having the bed symmetrical is just a pain point. But 30 years ago, 20 years ago, those were just major conflicts. And now I'm able to say to you, oh, sad. And, you're just present with me. Like, oh, what's happening with sad? What am I missing there? We process it through literally in 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And then I'm moving on. But that does not mean that you have to do the thing. There's some things that have enough value to me, and they have that enough value to me, that you're willing and able and even eager to do that. But there's a lot of things that I just process the pain of it. I'm one of the world's leading experts on opening cereal boxes correctly. And Phyllis is unable to feel sadness if the cereal box is not opened correctly. I want to make sure I emphasize the air quotes there on correctly. But it's pain for me to not open it correctly. But that doesn't mean that she has to change this. And we actually laugh about it a lot. And I'll gasp and I'm like, babe, oh my gosh, you tore the cardboard. And neither of us really care that much. Again, it's a pain experience for me, but it just doesn't matter anymore because I'm able to process the emotion of it.
I want to shout out to our good friends, Haley and Nathan Morgan. This is such a funny story that I hear from them all the time, where Nathan is a little more like Glenn, has some very particular things about him. And when he loves to cook, they both love to cook. They're great at it. We love going over there for dinner. It's always such a joy and so fun. But Nathan is very particular about like the spoon. I think I'm going to get this wrong, but like with his pots and pans, there's a certain spoon that he wants to be used. And where Haley doesn't even see that, like when she's in the kitchen, it's like everything is flying everywhere. And so she'll just grab whatever spoon to stir, and Nathan will come in and he'll say, "Oh, pain, pain." And Haley will tune in and she'll be like, "Oh, what's happening with the pain?" And he goes, "You're using the wrong spoon." And she just smiles, and she goes, "Oh, I get the pain." And then she keeps stirring with the wrong spoon.
Right.
And they dance really well around that. And that in years past, before connection codes, those would be huge
Yep,
conflicts.
absolutely.
Right.
Really huge, like
Yeah.
as in you are ruining the pan
Yes.
kind of conflict. And there's the way they function in the kitchen is very different. He kind of is one of those that wants to clean as he goes. She's one who just loves the cooking, turns on the music, and just it's like an art of dancing for her. But then it's everywhere, like
Right.
and she's I'm cleaning up after, he's cleaning up during. And they used to like fight over that, like trying to convince each other there is a right way, there's a better way to do this. Now they just like it draws them to each other because they have that safety of just expressing the pain for it, and she makes room for that for him. And then there's for her, she's able to express her joy in just the way she cooks, and it looks very different the way they cook. And they still can both be in the kitchen at the same time and hear each other's joy point and pain point in it.
Yeah, and that's such a fundamental connection codes protocol is that he's not trying to feel pain. And of course, pre-connection codes for them, he didn't know how to convey that, but he's genuinely feeling pain, which we would label as either sadness or hurt. And he doesn't know what to do with it. And now he's just able to say that to her. She is, I love watching their dance together because she's very gentle with him and she gets it. He feels pain about that spoon. She doesn't. And she's never going to. And he gets it that she's never going to feel pain about it. And of course, for years, they didn't get all that and had no idea what to do with it because he knows he's feeling pain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, she thinks he's just being a jerk, years ago. And now she realizes that, oh, okay, he feels pain. But that does not mean that she has to change what she's doing, her behavior. Now, there's some things, and of course, I request things of you, and you always have the right of refusal. Every human has the right of request and has the right of refusal, and you have the right of refusal. But there's certain things that you're like, yeah, that's valuable enough. Just like with making the bed, I know that it's valuable enough to you. It's such a joy point for
Right.
you, absolutely. And I'm not a quote unquote bed maker, but for you, yeah, absolutely. I'm delighted to do that.
Right, because that's one of my favorite parts about the connection codes and using the tools regularly and getting safe with each other, because this does take a level of safety. You can't
Oh, yes.
dance with each other
Right.
until you're safe with each other. And so Haley and Nathan are at a place now
Yeah.
where they're so safe with each other that he can say, "Oh, pain," and she can say, "What's the pain?" and smile and dance and continue using the spoon.
Yep.
But again, that takes time to get to and a lot of practice. Something else that is triggering for me in my head is that sometimes we feel the pressure to change even if the other person's not saying it.
Hmm.
And so for me, I have a fear of judgment. And so if I feel like I'm being judged for something, then I feel like I need to change my behavior. For example, this isn't even with Wes. Y'all were talking about making the bed. I never made my bed in my 20s. And then we hired a nanny. And the first time she watched the kids for us, I came home and our house was spotless. And she left, and I thought, Wes, she thinks we are filthy people. She thinks we're horrible. We need to clean the house for her for when she comes next
Oh
time.
my goodness.
So the next time she was coming, I cleaned the house for her because I did not want her to judge me or think that I was poor, like a poor representation of a person.
Wow.
So I cleaned the house. Then I came home and she had organized my pantry and cabinets
Wow. More
for
judgment.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it hit me that it actually had nothing to do with me.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with me. But it was what was happening for her and what brought her joy in the moment to do. She also made my bed every day for me. I never made my bed. And once she moved on and into her next career path, we had her for 2 years. I now have value in making my bed, and I make my bed. But it really clicks with me that we often perceive a judgment from our partners, but really it may not even be crossing their mind. It's just what's happening for them. And it oftentimes doesn't even have anything to do with us.
Yeah.
So for me, there's freedom
Mm.
in that. There's freedom in knowing I can use this spoon and he can process that and we're okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have to change every detail of who I am to fit into this box
Right.
for him. And also, he doesn't really want me to.
Mm.
He just needs to process
Right.
what's happening for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a, man, so many things are going through my brain right now of how different it is when you communicate what's happening with you in the emotion. Because there are things that are factual. Like, you think, okay, if someone says drinking an excess of coffee is really not good for you. Well, you can bring up facts. There are certain facts. Or, we know we're supposed to drink water. Our bodies need water. And some people are like more scientific about it. Like you're supposed to drink half your body weight in water every single day
In ounces.
in ounces. And, it's like, okay, there are things that are factual, but part of it is you may be looking at your partner saying, it's like you should be walking every day.
Right.
You should be drinking water every day.
Right.
You drink too much coffee. And there's so much, okay, that's logistically maybe factual, but there's so much judgment in that the other person only hears the judgment.
Mm.
But if you express it in a way that even says, I feel fear that the amount of coffee you're drinking is going to affect your liver, or I feel fear that your body is going to shut down and you're going to leave me a widow at a really young age if you don't start walking, or, whatever it is, if you are bringing it to yourself, that is such a different way of communicating. And even in that, you're not even saying you have to change. It's just, this is what's happening for me
Right.
in that.
Right.
And even to be able to say, I would feel so much joy if we could walk together,
Right.
or I would feel so much joy if we could, go buy water bottles and drink water together. Like whatever, like there's such a difference when you are able to tune in what's happening with you and you're communicating what's happening for you instead of putting a judgment on the other person.
Right.
That it just shuts down. And even, I think about that. It's like for us to be on a personal journey of tuning in to ourselves and knowing I deserve to show up for myself. I deserve to express what's happening with me and what I need. But that doesn't mean there's a judgment on the other person, as in a demand of change.
Right. Or that
Make
they're
sense?
bad or
Right.
wrong
Right.
or horrible because they're not doing what it is.
Well, and
we
even
think.
the tally, it's almost like if that is your approach, the other can say so easily, yeah, but look at you. You binge watch. That's not good for you. You're on your phone all the time. There's studies that say you should be limiting, like we're just back and forth.
Right.
We're keeping a record of look how many things bother me about you and look how many things. And it's just like, that's not going to ever get you connected emotionally.
Yeah.
Right.
At our most recent group intensive, which starts on a Thursday evening, at one point our son came, he and his wife were there, and came over to me, and he goes, Dad, I'm feeling a lot of fear. And I did the 3 phrases. I said, oh, what's happening with fear? What am I missing? And he goes, I'm feeling some fear that you're drinking too much. And we were serving wine. And I said, oh, wait, what's happening with that? And he goes, well, I've counted, and you've had 3 glasses of wine so far, and we were going to present in probably, 15, 20 minutes or something like that. And I love wine. I love, sampling wine, drinking wine. But because he's presenting to me just his experience, he's not criticizing me. He's not attacking me. I don't experience it as an attack. And I was just thinking about it later and just marveling that that's pretty amazing that my son can come to me. And again, did he change me, quote unquote? Well, sort of, I guess. I just don't view it that way. I mean, he genuinely cares about me. He's feeling fear that, whoa, at this rate, Dad's going to have like 7 glasses of wine. And then he's going to stand up in front of a group of people and try to present something of value. And it was just so powerful. And I immediately, and I had no idea how much wine I'd had at that point because I was just, enjoying the wine. They'd opened several different bottles. So I'm sampling different ones. But the fact that he can come to me from a position of vulnerability and just say that, Dad, this is what's happening with me. I'm feeling fear because I care about you. I care about this group. I care about what's happening here. And that whole interaction probably took 30 seconds. Whereas if he had come to me, and I'm a connection coder, hopefully I would still handle it well. But if he came to me and said, Dad, you're screwing up. You're doing the wrong thing. You're bad, whatever. That's going to be a lot more difficult for me to be able to handle that and be benefited by it. And again, it was a great benefit for him to be aware of me and be like, ooh, I feel some fear in this.
Right. And so it has a lot to do with how you're presenting. And if you're presenting from an authentic place within yourself versus pointing the finger at the other person and telling them how they are wrong, but instead just sharing your own emotion. And this makes me think too, because there are things like the difference between Haley and Nathan and the spoon. And if you haven't listened to our episode where Glenn and Phyllis talk about the shower head, we just released it recently. It's probably like 23, 24 episode where Phyllis was experiencing pain with the shower head, getting water out of the shower. Glenn then becomes the hero for her and changes the shower head before he gets out.
Every day.
Every day.
Point that out.
And
I'm a hero every day.
every day, you're
I
a
start
hero.
my day being a hero.
I'm not surprised at all, honestly, Glenn. I see you being the hero every day, for sure. And so it makes me think about the feet, the level of fear. So 43 feet of fear is the level in which after you hit 43 feet, anything above that feels the same. And so we often equate our pain experience, our hurt experience, our shame by these numbers. And so if I tell Glenn I'm at 43 feet of fear right now, well, that's a very high level of fear. That's a high level of pain for him to tune into me. And so when Nathan is expressing his pain about the spoon, I don't know what number that would be, but it may be a 5.
Yeah.
It may be a pain experience, but it's not triggering for him something high enough to make Haley need to tune in and pick up the spoon and change it to a different spoon. And so if we're trying to communicate these things with our partners, but when we're talking about health, so say, well, how can I let them know that my fear in their health or my pain, in their health, that's a high level. Like I would love to partner with them. Well, that's maybe 43 feet of fear.
Wow.
And so it may help you tune in even more to think, ooh, I experience pain about this one thing, but it's okay that I have that pain. But this other pain that I have, I would love to partner with you in this and us work together to overcome.
Yeah, and if you can tie in the joy point, there's just so much power in that to be able to convey that, well, the reason that Sky felt fear about me drinking too much that night is because he feels a lot of joy about me, about Dr. Glenn presenting, about this intensive. So, and he mentioned that. And again, we're talking about it just 2 seconds, 3 seconds. He just mentions that in passing. He's like, Dad, I want you to be on point. I feel so much joy about what's happening here. That's so moving to me. And then I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's not that he's judging me and he thinks I'm an idiot. He's aware of the upside potential of this incredible opportunity. And again, that's what's activating the fear for him, where it's like, oh, whoa, we don't want to miss on this. But again, I just tune into his joy experience. I'm like, oh, well, shoot. Yeah, I feel the same joy. This has incredible merit. This has incredible value. And again, it was probably a 30-second interaction, and it worked.
It's so interesting when I think about how, and it's all words. Isn't it crazy how words make all the difference in how we speak to each other, how we share things with each other? And even in the idea of our health, if our partner is communicating in a way where we feel judgment, it can create such a blockage in that we're, I believe, all aware of our own health. Like if we could take, like Aladdin with the magic, what is
Genie.
it? Yeah, genie. Like if I could have a wish, I would wake up tomorrow, like athletically wise, being able to do so many things. Like that is I think one of my kind of dreams of being able to be 60 and be able to, I mean, the list would be endless. Like as far as, I almost hate to say it because then it's like people are going to go, oh, well, you could, you could, right?
Wow.
But I think about in my younger days, I used to water ski a lot. And, I had no fear of it. And I mean, we just were on lakes a lot, did that. And then I think about, growing up in Germany, skiing was just kind of like, that's what you did. I love cross country skiing. The list is kind of endless. And I haven't done any of those things probably in decades, and I think I'm too old. Even we went bike riding, which when we moved to Tennessee is just full of hills.
Right.
And prior to Tennessee, I loved riding a bicycle. But then we moved here and I'm like, those hills kill.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm not biking anymore. But in my like, I would love to be on a bicycle a lot. And so this summer for our anniversary, our 40th anniversary, we were somewhere and we rented bikes. And my fear level was probably at 43 feet. I was overwhelmed with, I'm going to fall. I'm going to hurt myself. This is crazy. And Glenn got the first bike he rented didn't even work right. So he got delayed. And we're figuring out, because it was like you rent the bike not from a person.
Right,
and so you're
right.
using a machine.
Yeah.
And that alone is challenging and for us. And so I'm ahead of him. I don't know where he is. I'm like hesitant to put the brake on and stop because I thought I'm going to fall. And I'm trying to turn around. I'm like, oh, don't turn around. Just stay. If you hit any kind of bump, you're in trouble. And to say the least, it was not an enjoyable situation.
Right.
But then we stuck with it. I don't know if we did it for 30 minutes or 15, but by the time we were both done, even physically, my legs were screaming at me, like burning. And I thought, okay, I thought that would be so fun and carefree and joy, and it was actually quite challenging.
Yeah.
But I still have that on my list of, I would like to somehow figure out how to put bicycling back into my life, and not a stationary bike at the gym,
Right.
which I do enjoy. But I'm like, I want to be outside. But so there's health things where we see that with each other, and to have the language where we can simply express the joy of, I would love to do this again. But to do this again, I got to figure out, what do I need to get there? What do I need? And just recently, I actually got a health coach because I realized that I need someone who can walk through this with me a lot and often. And it's just fascinating because even getting to the point of the health coach, I had to go through and process that I don't feel worthy to spend money on those kinds of things, that I stop myself. Not anything Glenn has ever said, but it's in my head. It's the I have those shoulds. I should be able to do this on my own. I should be able to get healthy on my own. I should just, and you hear that all, like I tell myself, just get out and walk. You'll get healthier. You'll get stronger. Just the should. And I kind of had tried all these different things all year, and I kept getting back to, I'm not seeing any difference. And so I thought, I have to have a health coach right now. I need someone who can keep me on track and really encourage me and talk me through in a really practical way. And so I'm just right now kind of like on cloud 9. I'm only 3 weeks in, or maybe this is the beginning of my 4th week. And I'm just like, oh my word, just that little bit. And I think that I'm so thankful for Glenn because he always partners with me really well in whatever those kinds of endeavors. But if he had been the voice all these years, just going, babe, it's just so easy, just do it, I would not be where I am today. Like I would have heard that as judgment and criticism, and it would take me further away from my goals if I had had that message of the whole should. Well, you should just, eat better. You should just get out there and walk. And I'm so thankful that was never Glenn's approach. And matter of fact, when I mentioned to him that I thought I really want to do this and get a health coach, he was so supportive
Right.
and experienced the joy with me in that. But it's what's going on in your head that often stops you from actually becoming who you want to become.
Right, which nobody's trying to do, and that's
Mm-hmm.
and I'm allergic to that. Even as far as just active verbs, people say, "Well, the lie that I tell myself." Nobody tells themselves lies. That's something that's happening to them. They hear that from some other source, maybe an actual individual who has said it. Maybe, as you said earlier, Terry, from your nanny. Well, you received that message. You're not trying to actively. What kind of moron would actively tell themselves that? So, and I try to get away from that just because when we pathologize it, well, now Tira's an idiot, and so now you have to overcome that stage. Like, what's the matter with you, Tira? You dummy. Why do you tell yourself that? Tira doesn't tell herself that's just what's happening for her. It's emotion based. Emotion is chemical. Thoughts are electrical. Or vice versa. I always forget. But anyway, the point is that's just what's happening for you in the moment.
Well, I love the nanny story because I can so relate to that nanny. I was that babysitter when I was young, where I would clean
love
up.
to find that nanny again.
Yeah, and I would engage with the children, and I would play or whatever,
Right.
and then, but in my mind, it was like, oh, before I put them to bed, they should help me clean up and pick up all the toys.
Right.
And, I know that probably some of the kids I babysat for just were like, what? No one ever makes us clean up.
Yeah.
But I was very much, oh, let's clean up. And then I would get them to bed, and I was like, okay, I have 2 hours before the parents are due home. I never thought just sit here and read a book or sit here and watch TV. I'm like, they're paying me. I'm on the clock. So I would do all the dishes. I would wipe off all the counters. I would clean, or I would reorganize, whatever. And so I was a very, very popular babysitter, as you can imagine.
Yes.
But I thought it brought me joy. It wasn't a criticism of them. It was about me. It brought me joy. And I never thought, what is this communicating to them?
Yeah.
Right. And yet for you, you're telling me that what that communicated was you're experiencing as in, oh my word, she thinks we're slobs. And so let's be sure and clean up before she comes, which wasn't her point or objective at all.
Right.
Just
And
brought her
luckily,
joy.
I was able to overcome it quickly because, I'm so thankful for her. She actually became a very dear friend. But if I had not realized that quickly, oh my gosh, I would have just stressed myself out. And I ended up just trusting her. She packed my bags for me when Wes and I would travel. Like, I trusted her completely with everything and was able to realize her joy points. And she wasn't even sharing that at the time. But I don't know how I processed my shame in that moment because I didn't know these tools at the time. But I realized, oh, wow, I have shame. And I guess I was just maybe too tired and just let it go. That may have been it because I had little kids. I may have just been like, I don't care what she thinks about me anymore. And ultimately built trust with her. And I think that's what we can do with each other, though, when we stop putting their words in our head and imagining what we think they're saying. So if our partner is sharing, hey, I'm having some fear about your health and I would like to partner with you, our heads may be telling us, you're fat, you're lazy, you're not good enough. When that's not at all what the words were that they were trying to convey. And so whenever we reach the point where we stop processing it in that way, stop telling ourselves or hearing ourselves say these horrible things, then ultimately what that does is it builds trust, it builds safety, and then we truly are partnering in a new way.
Yeah, there's so much power in learning to use the 3 phrases with yourself. Literally be able to go, oh, what's happening for me here? What am I missing? What am I missing? What is happening for me? Oh, I get flooded with shame because, whatever it is. And to process that and then to be able to co-regulate it, to be with another person, hopefully a safe partner, and to say to them, you will not believe what happened to me earlier today. And, Phyllis and I went through a long period of time where I would just say that to her, where I began recognizing myself and that things were happening with me. And I even went through a phase where I'd walk in the room, I would go, you will not believe what my wife said to me today. And Phyllis would gently grin at me and she'd go, "Oh, what happened with that? What am I missing?" And I would tell her these horrible things that my wife said, which never actually happened, but I'm experiencing that. And that allowed me to process through so many of these terrible messages, terrible experiences that I was having with my wife, quote unquote. And that it was just amazing how cleansing that was. I assume we've covered this in the podcast before, certainly the shower story, but also the thanks for partnering with me story. So in those, the effect is that the other actually did change a behavior, but we don't experience it that way at all. That, oh, well, she's trying to change me, or oh, he's trying to change me. We're just partnering in life. We're dancing together. And now, I love playing poker. I mean, I can play poker for 15 hours straight. Phyllis doesn't hate poker. She despises poker. She's never going to play in a poker tournament with me. I would be flooded with joy if she ever played in a poker tournament with me. It's just too much of a pain point for me. She doesn't like the game. She doesn't like the tension. You know, a good poker player is a very good liar. You're basically lying continuously as you play poker. She just doesn't like that. She doesn't like the stress of it. So she doesn't have to play poker with me. And I, not regularly, but I occasionally go, "Babe, I feel so much joy about you playing in this poker tournament with me." She goes, "Oh, yeah, I get the joy." And then I'm thinking, "And you're going to?" She's like, "Oh, absolutely not." I feel so much pain about the idea of playing in a poker tournament. I'm like, okay. So, that's just something she's not, as I said before, everybody has a right of refusal. Everybody has a right of request. So I request, she refuses. And again, I get it. And she gets my joy point about the thrill of her playing in a tournament with me. I get her pain point that she doesn't want to play in a poker tournament.
But what I love though is, while yes, Phyllis is not saying I'm going to play poker with you, but what Phyllis does do is she goes to wine tastings with you, and I know that's not her favorite thing,
Right,
and art shows. And so it's not this continuous no.
Right,
It's not this always absolutely not, no give and take. There are the things that we just ebb and flow, and I love. I think it's my favorite like phrasing or language that we use in the connection codes, and that is dancing with each other. And it's not a literal, like, if you hate to dance, you may be like, "Well, I don't want to dance with anybody." It is just going through with each other in life, like working with each other, both taking turns leading and twirling each other and figuring out where the holes are on the dance floor to move to together. It is staying in sync, and it doesn't mean you're always saying yes to every single thing. And it's communicating what those pain points and those joy points are.
Yeah, and for her to be able to me, to be present with me in my joy experience about this thing, and of course that's vice versa, and we've shared that before, there's just so much power and connection just in that, regardless of what she then does. The fact that I'm able to process through, I mentioned the cereal box. I love having a perfectly opened cereal box, a correctly opened cereal box. It means nothing to her. She is unable to care. Now, we do have grandchildren that open cereal boxes so that they're completely unusable. You might as well just dump them out in the trash can. So that does become a pain point for her. But the vast majority of the time, it just doesn't. She's not trying to not feel pain. She just doesn't feel pain. And I'm not trying to feel pain. I just do. And she's not trying to feel joy or not feel joy about a perfectly open cereal box. When I open a cereal box perfectly, I just feel joy about it. So we're able to process through that together. We have a lot of, well, it's not a lot, but we have several active hummingbirds on our property. I get flooded with joy. I mean, it's close to a disorder of the psyche. I mean, I see a hummingbird, and I mean, I would drop a baby that I was holding just to.
He's not wrong.
Pursue. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it is.
No, I've seen it. He hasn't dropped a baby yet, but we have ceased conversation.
Like, what baby is like my baby? It's on the ground now. I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. Feel a little guilt. But anyway, Phyllis just doesn't get overwhelmed with hummingbirds. She just doesn't. And she's not trying to not feel joy about it. She just doesn't. So the fact that we're able to process through that, it's amazing to me how connecting it is, and nothing changes in the behavior of the other, and it doesn't need to. I just need to be able to process through what is authentic, what's real, what's happening with me in that moment.
Right. So what is a key takeaway that you would want each of us. I love that we did this in our last episode.
Mm.
What's one thing that we would want listeners, if they clued in today, to take away from this?
I'm going to start, or
Yeah.
I immediately I think tune into yourself
Mm.
and realize that you deserve to express what's
Yeah.
happening for
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely.
So if it's a pain point for you in whatever the behavior of your partner is, you have the right to say that.
Yeah.
Mm.
But then the power of the connection codes and the tools that you learn is that it is your own experience in it.
Yeah.
And to realize that demanding them to change, it's partially because I think we don't want to be in pain.
Mm.
So we want there to be change, so I'll never feel pain again. If you just change this, and it eliminates my pain. But actually it's you processing,
Yeah.
which means you discovering it, you saying it out loud. I feel pain in this. It makes such a difference of how you experience it. Then it releases it from your own body. So it's about your experience. It doesn't change. It doesn't require the person to change.
Right.
And that is really powerful, actually, because otherwise, everyone in our life, we're like, I need you to change this, and over there, Sally, I need you to change this, and oh, John, I need you to change this, because I don't want to have any pain in my life.
Right.
To realize, actually, the power is in you just identifying the pain and releasing it from your body.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, just how incredibly connecting it is, just the sharing of the emotion, the processing of the emotion. And so often, I don't want to say 100% of the time, but I would say the large majority of the time, nothing has to happen beyond that. Just processing the emotion itself is bonding, is connecting, and then we're good. And again, there are times that we change behavior. Again, I don't view that as, she's trying to change me. But yeah, I changed some behavior on her behalf. But just the processing of the emotion itself is very, very connecting. And there often is nothing that's going to happen beyond that. We're just processing the emotion together.
Yeah, for me, I think it is also changing our verbiage of, instead of saying changing each other, we're dancing with each other. And that when our partner shares with us their pain about how we're folding the towels, we can ask, what's your pain level? Is this something, how much do we need to dance here?
Right.
Is this something that we can laugh with each other in our dance about, giggle with each other in our dance? Or is this on a pain scale for them where we need to tune in and ask, how can I partner with you in that? Maybe it's that you don't fold the towels at all anymore. They get to fold them their way, and you dance in a different way.
Yeah.
And so just tuning in that way and seeing it as a dance and not seeing it as not good enough or everything I do is wrong. But instead, I just want to dance with you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Love
do you
that.
want to do the wheel for
Yeah,
us?
absolutely. You want me to start?
Yeah. Are we doing it issue
No.
specific or? Okay.
Just whatever.
Cool. All right.
So I feel a lot of joy in the fact of tuning in to myself. This has been kind of the season where I'm, even with getting a coach, a health coach, just like, wow, what was blocking me from that was my own judgment of my own self. So a lot of joy that I'm discovering myself, the curiosity of that, and being able to express that. There's so much joy in that. And partnering with you through that has been so great. I think that in that there is, I think for me, fear, even right now, tuning in that I've overscheduled us. So the fear of not getting everything done that needs to be done right now. And then I would say there's sadness in that because I've been really tired lately because I didn't give myself any time to recover from a really, really busy weekend. And so that my body feels sad. Hurt, let's see. I always, I've said it so many times, especially on our podcast, my hurt usually is between us, when there's been things said or you're at times not tuning in to me. And I know even last night I felt a little hurt, very low number, hurt that you were not aware of time. And so it was midnight before we were with friends sitting outside over a fire. It was beautiful, but my body was so shutting down. And so I felt a little hurt that you were not aware of time and
Mm.
aware of me, and that we
Yeah.
needed to go to bed. Loneliness, I have felt this week some loneliness in just what is next for the connection codes, and what that requires and what I need to be doing. At times I feel alone in that. I don't always know what's around the corner, so feel alone at times in that. Guilt and shame. Let's see. I would say the shame, feeling bad about who I am. Probably in this weekend, felt probably very close guilt and shame that I was very aware of the tasks that had to be done for this weekend, the intensive. I was very aware of like making sure the chairs were right and the flowers were right. And I think that guilt and shame for me is that then I don't always tune into the people.
Mm. Well,
So let's see. Anger. I believe just being around couples who were hurting so much.
mm.
And just the anger in that is that if we would, as a society, start talking about these things, it would drastically change the level of life that people are living,
Right.
and that they could learn these tools early and learn how to tune into themselves and be able to be real and honest and express things. So anger in that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that anger for me too. Of course, we spent so much time with the couples, and different ones of them said, yeah, we've been in marriage therapy for 23 years, and we haven't found anything that helps yet. And I wish that marriage therapists would fire themselves quicker. We've sat with so many couples that are like, we went to this one therapist for 9 years. I'm like, what the heck? The therapist the couple should have fired him, but the therapist should have fired themselves. After pick a number, 15 sessions. If you're not getting anywhere, fire yourself. Dang it. You obviously don't know how to do this, at least with this particular couple. A lot of guilt last night. I'm just so oblivious to time. It's ridiculous. And when I looked at my phone, it was 11:52, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my poor girl. Because, 10:01, you're done. And I was just oblivious, and we were having fun. I mean, there was a lot of joy in it, but it was really, really bad. Because I know that creates a heavy toll on you. And there's some anger in that, like, dang it, Glenn, you have to be aware of that. Tons and tons of joy just getting to feel seen and heard by you, that I'm able to just share so freely. We're just pilgrims on the journey. We don't do it perfectly, but we're pretty darn good at it. And for me just to be able to convey, you ooh me well. And, as we just said in this episode, doesn't mean you have to change anything. It's just I'm able to process through what's happening for me. The pain points. I was thinking about when I walked in, I think it was yesterday, the day before, and these towels were all folded incorrectly. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, we should throw those in the trash because they're ruined for life. And now they're stacked all crookedly. And I'm like, oh, no one will want to use those towels because they're not folded or stacked properly. And that sometimes that gets to a level of hurt where I'm just like, oh, wow, that's not good. That's not right. We put the china away after the weekend, and somebody had stacked all the china, and the plates were not lined up with the pattern. Just like, what is wrong with these people?
Wow.
But there's some pretty sharp pain in that. Loneliness this weekend, some because, man, we had a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I was looking for tablecloths, and I was like, I don't know where the dang tablecloths are. And felt very alone in that quest. What am I missing? Fear for some of the couples this past weekend. I absolutely know if they will use the Connection Codes tools, they will process through and connect. And my fear is that by Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they will have forgotten everything, and we did all this for naught, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, they still have takeaways, but if they don't implement the tools, I feel a lot of fear that they're not going to make it. Did I get close to 8? I lost track.
Sounds like
Somewhere
it to
around
me.
there. Yep. So
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today. Please, if you have not already given us a 5-star review on either your podcasting app or Spotify now has 5-star reviews, That is so helpful for us to get this message out and for people to discover this podcast. So please, it will only take a few seconds. Hit that 5-star, share it on Instagram, and tag us at Connection Codes. And we are so grateful to be on this journey with you.
Yeah, and I do want to emphasize, share this with 3 people, 5 people. If everybody listening to this shared it with 3, 4, 5, or 10 people, this would explode so fast. And I guarantee you know a ton of people that this would bless incredibly, because you need this.
You deserve this.
So let's do this.
this.
Let's do this.